Right now.
Hello?
Good morning. You're joining us at the
Hello?
Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Door County on July 24th, 2022. Thank you for being here.
Try again.
Ah, there we go. There we go.
Just took a little bit.
All right, we're live.
Morning, Terry.
Oh, there's that guy Smythe. Is he talking again this morning?
So, how did you finally resolve that conflict?
I arranged my 25th. I'm gonna do it the 25th.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, it's just, we have someone coming in to town for a week to stay with us. And so I think we're gonna have her come in a day early because she wants to come here on Sunday. Karen Morsch is coming.
Oh, she
Yeah,
is?
because she's staying with us because she's taking the Orkland class.
Oh,
So,
good.
yeah,
good.
so anyway, so she'll be there, but you won't be there that day. Or, well, no, when do you leave on your trip?
No,
you're
you'll be gone,
You'll
yeah.
be gone, yeah, but
You'll
yeah.
be gone. Boy, I'm sorry about that, too, because I love to see her again.
Yeah. Well, she's taking, I think it's a painting class, I think.
Watercolor.
A watercolor class.
Okay, well.
Yeah, so anyway, so I can make this one and I'll try to make yours when you do yours on the 2nd. I mean, I can only take you so much.
For our heads exploded.
Yeah, I mean, I can't absorb that much now.
Yeah.
It's so close together. Oh, my.
Oh, goodness. Well, I'm really curious. I haven't seen her now in a couple of years.
Oh, yeah, it's been a while since she's been here. I can't remember the last, well, let's see.
Boy, I was so fond of her parents,
Oh,
too.
yeah, oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, oh, man, oh, man.
Oh, well, I hope we get a good, at least we got some rain. What I was saying.
But not very much now. Maybe you got
We
more.
got quite a bit. and
Did you?
it's
We
green
only
day.
got like 1.5 inches.
No, really,
Yeah,
big.
that's all we got.
Our kids were all at the soccer game last night, Green Bay, the pro game.
Yeah, yeah.
And we sort of lucked into it, it was on TV last
Yeah,
night.
what?
But we didn't, I mean, we were going out with some friends for some dinner, came back and there it was.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry we didn't get more on rain, but again, we just, 0.15 is all we got.
Well, at least it's something.
It's something, but more, you could sure do a lot more than that.
you know.
Well, so be it. So be it.
Back to high.
Yeah.
Just in, so if they should start inviting people to do that again. Put your phone on the other side.
Sheila, yeah.
And meet the president.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know, don't do a lot.
Have you ever seen this community before? Welcome, are you a visitor? No. All right. Oh, there you are. Yes.
Julie's on the plate? So he's not helping her with.
Look forward to your message today.
Well, thank you.
It's always a good one.
Pardon me?
It's always a good one.
Well, thank you.
And normally I leave with some kind of book to go read or something, so I'm.
Okay. I would like to think that occasionally I make people maybe think a little differently, like check on something, or, you know, hey, I hadn't thought about that for a while, or, you know, whatever.
For sure. Today is gonna get hot again.
I gotta find somebody who has money. You know.
I know where it is.
Very good.
So Jim, it's that one, not this one, right?
That's right, yeah.
I don't even know what that is.
Now, Jim, can you help me understand what exactly does Homewood's connection do?
I have no idea.
So can the Homewood's no connection?
No, that's right.
I don't think it would be difficult, although I probably could do it. I get out of sync with everybody else.
Hello. Yeah.
Well.
That thing's powerful.
Or wearing a mask or wearing glasses for me just doesn't
Oh,
work.
I know, it is all fun
Just
stuff.
does not work.
In my practice, when I start taking in new cases, there were 23. I did more than half of them.
No, I won't be on TV.
Wasn't that?
I get to talk to some people who wrote and just.
The next time you come up, let us know.
I would like to do a mic check with you, Jim. I would like to do a mic check so that I know if people are hearing you.
I didn't do anything?
Yeah, talk.
Just thought I'd check.
That's what I'm doing, check.
I'm supposed to say something.
Whoa, you did. All right.
Very skilled at that.
That was profound.
Was that okay?
That was profound. I said that was profound.
Yeah, right.
You know, Merlin,
I know, I always appreciate that.
you may have trouble with this.
I'll just talk slowly.
How we will.
That'll do.
Yeah. Well, just that in and of itself might be interesting.
Personal
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and we can't imagine. I can't imagine just living with that day in, day out, and waking up every morning and thinking, I'm gonna do this today.
It's just, you can't short.
Yeah, no, I don't get it either. I don't get it either.
I stopped.
I know people who believe in their heart that they're superior to the black man.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
And they don't mean anything bad about it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's like living in Mississippi. For 9 years in the 60s was a real education.
I went through,
Oh,
yes.
well, it depends on how you classify integration. I mean, it was segregated in Gulfport, segregated families and so forth. Walking downtown was kind of a rainy, when there's coming toward us. And she got as far as Rita.
That's a whole different story.
And then just Hurricane Camille came right down. 69. Awful. Eventually, crews came around to help homeowners. Cut down trees, clean up trees, and so forth. So, two not one came around. I'll never forget. So I went with them for a while. It was hot, stinking in the middle of summer in Mississippi. Bad. So I said, come over, come into the house and have some lemonade. Can't do that, sir. When you even go to the garage door,
North Left.
and then one more thing, I had her when I worked in this guy looks at me and he says, I'm gonna make a fine place for you.
Oh, jeez.
I was just speechless. I was absolutely.
Well, I can certainly.
Yeah. But Tommy, that's not even going into the garage with the garage door.
Email thanking her for volunteering.
It's just hard to imagine. Hard to imagine people living that way, living that way. I wonder.
We're getting very emotional.
You know, they haven't shown up yet.
Yeah. Well. I don't know, Jim. I'm beyond why I can't understand some of the things because I just can't.
Oh, I have no advantage.
We saw it.
Well, that's what she was. I'm gonna get a little closer.
It's gonna be an
Mary's father, Richard Mary's. Two blocks away, where he used to snow with Methodist.
Hey, Tim.
Hello, Mark.
How are you?
How you think?
I'm good. Good. I heard you were talking, and I wasn't sure if I was coming or not. But then I read the blurbs, and I went, well, okay, we'll see what wisdom he's going to put out today.
I just intakes and I had so many clients in sales, and they would always show up if there was a change in the weather. If it had been terribly rainy and sunny, they wouldn't show up. Or if it had been sunny and rainy. Just the change in the weather. So I know that when I know you are doing talk. You're doing talk.
Yeah. If people want to.
And,
I'm not wrong enthusiastic about talk like most of the time, but yeah.
sometimes they're just a form for themselves.
That's right.
You know, I come to talk because I want to hear more of what the speaker is.
Yeah, well.
Recently. They graded my presentation. Last week.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually a much better job.
I've heard some people say that.
You know, they're not too much substantive. Trish, she's taking a bath.
You got it.
No, I think I'm gonna go out and over this
Well,
No, I gave that up when I started. Transitioning the ramp over to. My dad took over. So we're gonna be nice. No, I don't know.
You know what? I guess Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have a
My sister and I did.
I didn't think that.
Well.
It's only 68 degrees out there. Okay, well, I'm gonna find out. I thought this was at the liquor store. I thought we were supposed to have the liquor store open. But it's a high level.
You know what, it's not on the sheet. So I was reading the last sentence. And then after the fact. So he's, you know,
Well, we have our lawyers.
Well, just so that somebody's here.
How are you?
Very good.
Thank you, Beth. That was a wonderful way to start the day. I'm Jim Black. Good morning. I'm the service leader today. And it looks like summer has come to Door County and a lot of people are enjoying it rather than coming here. It's our practice to invite people who have come here for the first time or who haven't been here in a while to stand and just introduce themselves. So is anyone feeling courageous enough to stand up and introduce themselves? Oh, good, thank you.
I'm Mark Gignac, and we're here visiting for the week from Philadelphia.
Oh, welcome. On the back of the order of service, there are announcements. Does anybody have any additions to that? Terry will bring around the mic.
Yeah, Bruce Nelson had just asked me to remind everybody who would volunteer to help remove the brush behind the building here. That's this coming Wednesday, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. So hope it'll be done in a couple of hours. And bring your truck or trailer if you got one. And your gloves too.
I'm speaking for the 25th year anniversary. Mark your calendars, August 17th, 6:30. Bring your own, whatever you want, refreshment and chairs. In this garden, the ambassadors, kids jazz ensemble will be playing a concert for us. So before COVID and a few years before that, we had the ambassadors every summer, and they're just such a talented bunch of kids. So mark your calendars, August 17th, 6:30 in the evening, not the morning. What? It's not the 12th. Something said the 17th. Could you check?
I will.
Yeah, and have Sarah put it on. Because they usually do Wednesday. They usually do Wednesday.
This is a Friday the 12th.
Okay, Friday the 12th. I stand correct. Blame it on the age.
All right, we got that. Anything else you'd like to talk about?
Okay, yes, that's great, thank you. You could just take an opportunity to make sure your cell phones are turned off at this time. After the service today, there will be a talk back. We'll figure out the time based on when the service ends. About 10, 15 minutes after the service ends, we'll meet over here to discuss with Dick more of his topic. The opening words today are from Christina Smith. Let us wake up, not just from the Sunday morning exhaustion, from the wish for a few more drowsy minutes in bed. Let us wake up to this world we live in, to its beauty and its wonder, and also to its tragedy and pain. We must wake up to this reality, that all is not in our world what we have, that not all in our world have what we have, however much or little that is. We must wake up to the idea that our wholeness, our lives, and are only as complete as the lives of those around us, of those who are inextricably tied to the great web of human mutuality, of all of us are a part. Let us stay woke, in the words of our friends and colleagues in the Black Lives Matter, working every day for racial justice in this country. And now, in this time and place, let us worship together. The chalice lighting is by Viola Abbott. As we light this chalice and fully embrace the sacred space created here this morning, please hold in your hearts the Unitarian Universalist principles. Please stand and body your spirit for the unison affirmation. We gather together to seek knowledge and wisdom, to explore freely the vast reaches of mind and spirit, to celebrate within a caring community those truths, ancient and modern, which give meaning and direction to our lives. This is the time in our service where we offer an opportunity to share a joy or a concern. And do recall that things are being broadcast over the internet, so If you're gonna share something about somebody, make sure you have their permission. And Terry, again, will bring around the mic.
A number of you already know this, that have been able to reach Friendship Barnard, our dear friend and neighbor, who was involved in probably every worthwhile organization up here, died Friday morning.
So along those lines, I've been thinking about Frances since that, and I've already had the music picked out for this morning, but the final piece is called Come Thou Traveler Unknown, which feels like just kind of a lovely sending off for her. There is another song that has words that go to it that are based on Ecclesiastes, for everything there is a season. So that also fits with this ancient Scottish folk tune, so we can hold her in our hearts during that last piece of music.
Along that theme, I would like to just lift up the name of the Reverend Rob Eller Isaacs. He was for a number of years a co-minister with his wife Jan at the Unity Church in St. Paul, Minnesota. He passed away this week.
All right, very good, thank you, and very sad. At this time, it's time for the offertory. Please be generous for the support of the fellowship. Thank you. Our speaker today is Dick Smythe. Dick is well known by most of us. He quietly does much for the fellowship here. He's spoken to us many times. Each time I listen to Dick, his words stay with me, spurring thoughts and investigation. I'm sure Dick's message today will be thought-provoking. Let's take a moment of quiet to reflect on things and center ourselves for Dick's message.
Good morning.
Good morning.
3 stories, 3 lessons. One interpretation of my first story this morning would be to call it an example of grace. Now, I'm not talking about a woman's name. I'm talking about a word we don't hear very often anymore. Probably, I should say, this story is an example of public grace. And if you were to look up the word grace in your dictionary, or at least in my dictionary, there was 3 very different definitions of grace. 1, elegance or refinement of movement. 1, courteous goodwill. And the third was, as related to Christian belief, the free and unmerited favor of God manifested in salvation of sinners. Now, furthermore, if you had access to the large, and it is big, a large 5-volume New Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible, you would see 5 pages, 5 full pages devoted to the discussion of grace. Just as one example, Paul, in his letters, often employs grace, and he uses it to designate the demonstration of God's goodwill toward humans in the person of Jesus. Okay. The first story I want to share with you is a condensed version, really, of an editorial by the editor-publisher of the Christian Century magazine, Peter Marty. It's a classic example of grace. It's an institutional decision by the enormous New York Public Library. Now, this library is no little rinky-dink affair. This is the largest library in the country. It's the 4th largest in the entire world. It consists of 53 million items spread across 92 different locations. So what did it do? Well, it announced last year that it would no longer charge late fees for books or media that were overdue for return. And it will waive all fines accumulated in the recent past. Now, this may sound like a piddly little deal, but it's huge, because last year, the New York Public Library took in $3.2 million in late fees.
Wow.
$3.2 million. This library serves a vast audience just in New York alone. But more than 400,000 New Yorkers were blocked from accessing books because they owed more than $15. And the vast majority of those unable to gain entrance to the library were poor people, many of them children, and they had no access for books to learn from. Now, the library president commented, quote, "Libraries are crucial to our democracy of informed citizens." Now, in addition to books and media, this library offers Wi-Fi access, citizenship classes, literacy programs, children's reading sessions, and the English language study. The idea behind the library is that no person, regardless of background or circumstances or color or religious beliefs, should have to face an access barrier when it comes to reading. As the president of the library said, this step makes us one little bit closer to a more equitable society, and we are proud to make it happen. So despite being inundated with seemingly unending discouraging news all around us, here we have this enormous library reaching out into a sometimes, frankly, ungracious world to suddenly erase fees while trusting people to bring stuff back. Sounds an awful lot like grace. Undeserved, unexpected, often astonishing. I believe there might be a lesson here for us. Lesson number 2. We white Americans can be ignorant manipulators. Now that sounds kind of harsh. But for many centuries, we have disenfranchised our Native American brothers and sisters. Sometimes very brutally. In fact, we have managed now to exclude Native Americans, our brothers and sisters, from their own story. And I will try to explain this. In September of 2021, the New York Times published a study from Science Magazine. Now, Science is one of the 2 or 3 leading science magazines in this country. It published a study showing that footprints have been discovered in the white sands of New Mexico that have been dated to 23,000 years old, human footprints. So this discovery extends that publicly accepted appearance of human activity in North America by 7,000 more years, 16,000 years ago to 23,000 years ago. Now this is a big deal, right? Well, yes and no, and therein lies the point of the story. For many years, archaeology in this country has been subservient to the so-called Clovis First hypothesis, which among other things states that Native Americans first arrived on this continent 16,000 years ago. And this scenario, quote, has acted as a firewall against indigenous archaeologists. And this bias against pre-Clovis settlement is so strong that many archaeologists who have found oversights and have published in reputable journals on oversights have been academically destroyed personally, and their reputation just ruined. Now, please keep this in mind. I want to consider 2 relevant facts here. First, there probably is no phrase more ubiquitous for Native Americans when they deal with people like us than "we have been here since time immemorial." That's very clear. Indigenous people have existed on and stewarded these lands for a very long time. And yet, despite all archaeological digs and studies and news stories concerning our indigenous people, academia has failed to feign even the slightest interest or concern for what our indigenous people say, what they believe, what they think. Talk about academic conceit. This is unfortunately a stunning example, and it gets worse. If you only read mainstream coverage of this story, you would walk away without a clue that this story about indigenous folks is in fact not a scientific discovery. It's a story about what humans, our brothers and sisters, have been saying for years. For years. And more than that, not a single indigenous citizen, historian, storyteller, geneticist, archaeologist was quoted in this report. Nor did the word indigenous appear even a single time. Why? Why is it so hard for an indigenous truth to become an American fact? The White Sands discovery's biggest accomplishment lies less in its scientific merits than in the way the fallout to the news highlights the lengths to which our institutions, the Academy, the journals, the mainstream newspapers, how far they will go to avoid conceding that their grand discovery is nothing more than a physical acknowledgement of what indigenous people have been saying forever. Few media outlets even bother to pick up the phone and speak with an indigenous person about this. Now, this situation is made all the more frustrating, if that's possible, by the fact that indigenous experts, Native American indigenous experts have worked tirelessly to enter indisputable claims of indigenous life and culture that extend far beyond the 16,000-year limit. But these claims, their studies, their proclamations, have been met with nothing but eye rolls. We, U.S. academic institutions and press, are so self-centered, so conceited, and in many ways we're very ignorant. Frankly, I'm personally ashamed. The Times and our university systems have chosen to believe only what their systems of validation perceive to be important. And their systems were built to exclude indigenous knowledge. So our second lesson is pretty straightforward. We need finally to listen and learn from indigenous experts. In so many ways, they have much to teach us, and we frankly have much to learn. So, here's our third story. One night in September 2021, in a gentrifying neighborhood just south of downtown Dallas, a 26-year-old accountant named Botham Jean came home from work. He didn't bother to lock his private door. He changed into shorts and a t-shirt, got 2 scoops of vanilla ice cream from the fridge, sat down on the sofa, watched a football game, and before he even got started with the ice cream, a stranger barged in, yelling, "Let me see your hands." Without giving him a chance to respond at all, he was shot dead. Who was the stranger? The stranger was an off-duty police officer named Amber Geiger. And she lived in the apartment directly below Jean's. She later said that she had accidentally entered the wrong apartment, mistaking Jean, who was black, for an intruder in her home. In a New York Times story about this, 2 reporters, Manny Fernandez and Marina Martinez, noted, and this hit me right in the pit of my stomach. They noted this. The racial profiling of black men and women by white folks in this country have put new phrases into the American vocabulary. Driving while black. Walking while black. Shopping while black. And now the shooting of Mr. Jean seems to demand its own, even more disturbing version. Being home while black. The assault of blacks by police officers continues. Now, Geiger was not immediately arrested. She was not immediately fined. She turned herself in 3 days later to a manslaughter charge. She was booked in the Kaufman County Jail and was freed the same day on a $300,000 bond. Now, later that month, she was dismissed from the police department, and a grand jury, 2 months later, raised the manslaughter charge to murder. Now, when Geiger went to trial in the fall of 2019, most people familiar with our legal system held little hope that she would ever be held accountable for killing an unarmed black person. A black activist wrote, "Black Americans were too wise and too weary to let ourselves believe, even for a moment, that this system could do anything but break our hearts once again. Well, the jury deliberated for just 5 hours. They came back and found Geiger guilty. And one person who was at the trial wrote, "The shock was palpable." And Jean's mother, Allison, raised her arms in exultation. "God is good. Trust in him," as she walked out of the courtroom. But the main reason I'm relating this story is because the most dramatic moment comes next. The following day was the sentencing phase, and Jean's younger brother, Brant, took the stand. Now, he was 18 years old, and he was there to make a victim impact statement. And typically, during these times, the crime victim usually talks about the pain he or she has suffered and asks for the harshest possible penalty. Brent addressed Geiger in a hushed and intimate tone, and this is what he said. "If you are truly sorry, I know I can speak for myself. I forgive you." And then he went on, "I wasn't even going to say this in front of my family, but I don't even want you to go to jail. I want the best for you." And then he looked at the judge and asked the judge with some urgency, "Judge, can I give her a hug?" The judge hesitated, but then he said, "Yes." So Brant stepped down from the witness stand, embraced Geiger for almost a minute while she sobbed. Brant's words were widely celebrated. Even the county prosecutor, whose office had been arguing for a harsh penalty, called his embrace an amazing act of healing and forgiveness. That is very rare in today's society. Geiger was sentenced to 10 years in jail. Now, here's the point I really want to lift up this morning. Some observers did not welcome this act of forgiveness, objecting to a perception that Black people are far too often called upon to forgive and forgive and forgive and forgive. Others worried that such absolution might preclude a serious examination of police shooting in America. But there's something else here. There's something else in this response that I think we need to pay attention to. I think what we have here is a discomfort with the notion of forgiveness. Let's hold that thought for a moment. And let's listen to the words of the former Harvard Law School Dean, Martha Minow, who wrote in a recent book, quote, "Forgiveness need not bar prosecution or other legal consequences for the wrongdoer." And then she reminds us, there is nothing inevitable about our own country's particularly punitive approach to defining, prosecuting, and punishing crimes, especially if the accuser is a member of a racial minority. And then she adds this thought. America has a generally forgiving policy toward debt, especially business debt. Bankruptcy is available to give companies or individuals a fresh start. Why, she asks, why should forgiveness be plentiful in one realm and scarce in another? So, do we as a nation, do we as individuals have some measure of discomfort with the notion of forgiveness? We have by far the highest incarceration rate in the world. And right now, there are more than 200,000 people, 200,000, serving life sentences. And because of the tough on crime movement that began in the 70s, they gave us longer sentences, effectively decimating the parole system and scaring officials away from granting pardons. Virtually none of those 200,000 face the slightest chance of being freed. Life sentences without parole are virtually unheard of in other countries. And imprisonment beyond 20 years is a predominantly American phenomenon. Our legal system routinely refuses to grant forgiveness to people who commit even the most minor infractions. Now, just listen to this example. An attorney says, on one typical day as a public defender, I stood in Bronx criminal court and listened to a prosecutor declare that my client, accused of trespassing. Why? Because she cut through a city park after dark. She got a year in prison. How is that possible? How is that in any way justified? And the public defender went on to say, I have seen dozens of people sentenced to years in prison for feeding their addictions or having psychotic breaks. What useful purpose does this serve? One more unfortunate example from the public defender. He writes this way. One of the first people I represented was a woman accused of shoplifting ingredients to make her children lasagna on Christmas Eve. After being arrested and taken from her kids in handcuffs, she pleaded guilty to a non-criminal violation. And her children? Did anybody care for them? Not publicly. Not publicly. Martha Minow, the former Harvard Law School dean, has stated this in her recent book. Ours is an unforgiving age. I can't speak for anybody else, but I will admit that on more than one occasion, I have found the concept of forgiveness very difficult. Now, those of us who profess either the Christian or Jewish faith know full well that the Bible is loaded with commentary and stories concerning the importance of forgiveness. Most of us are familiar with the Lord's Prayer, and it asks for divine forgiveness as it reflects our personal practice of forgiveness. Recall the words. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And then finally, there is the incident in Matthew where Peter asked Jesus, Lord, if another member of the church sins against me, how often should I forgive? 7 times? Jesus replied, not 7 times, 70 times 7. So in conclusion, I would suggest we might want to ask ourselves about our own ability and our own practices to forgive. Could it use a little refreshing? Maybe a little rethinking? Again, I can't speak for you, but in my case, the answer would be yes.
Thank you, Dick. You certainly did not disappoint. That was a very thoughtful, provoking presentation. And yes, forgiveness. So why don't we start talk back a little bit before 11? I'll ring some chimes. We'll meet over here. Our closing words are by Cheryl Block. As we go forward into this frightening, exhilarating, confusing, miraculous world, may we offer our comfort to the afflicted, our love to those who are lonely, and our wish for all to be safe.